You're live.
Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Thursday, May 19th, 2022. It is 10:14 a.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel or join by calling 360-252-9020, PIN number 1234. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. In the boardroom is Vice Chair Ty Menser. Joining us via Zoom is Commissioner Gary Edwards. In the boardroom is County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. And we have other staff members joining us via Zoom. Today, the topic on the agenda is Budget Amendment Number 1, follow-up. And with that, I'll hand it off to Robin.
Yep, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. So we are here to talk this morning about the budget amendment. Amendment number 1. I have information here in the boardroom that I do apologize is not in your packets. It is late breaking, if you will, updates on budget status and a PowerPoint slide, which I will share on my screen and go through. And during my presentation, I'll talk about what we're doing today, where we're at. So I'm gonna share my screen. And I don't like these things. And for whatever reason, it does not want to share the PowerPoint. So I'm gonna try again, aha. And start the slideshow. Come on, there we go. All right. So, as I said, today we are talking about budget amendment number 1. And on the agenda for today, I'd like to chat with you about the amendment process. And then I was going to ask for you to make decisions, but we'll talk about why that's not possible today. There is an update on the forecast. This is part of what you do not have in your advance packet. And again, I apologize for that, but I do want to share information on where we're at. And we'll get as far as we can today and then schedule a separate session for decision making. Going back to process. You will recall, I'm sure, that we've been working toward creating a consistent process. And what you see on the screen is the Gfoa framework for financial foundations for thriving communities. And there are 5 pillars to the Gfoa framework. And this is an approach that is being recommended as best practices to promote trust and treat everyone fairly in the budgeting and finance process. So you'll see that some of the things is to build trust through open communication, creating clear rules, and treating everyone fairly. And we've been working toward these items in the budget process with you. So budget amendments, this is what the law says about budget amendments. The amendments, or rather the state law, provides authority for commissioners to amend county budgets during the fiscal year. You can do supplemental appropriations, and the law specifically calls out unanticipated receipt of revenue sources and making transfers and revisions within departments. And I would just say that a budget term of art, if you will, is departments, and that is both offices and departments. It is not only departments that are headed by appointed directors. So in budget, we use the term departments, but it means within the county culture, offices and departments.
Can I ask on that?
Yep,
So transfers or revisions within departments.
That's
Within
right.
departments, so. Is there any limit, some citizen group wants us to support some project midstream, and we debate to do that. Are we within the bounds of this law? Because, does it fall within a transfer or revision within a department?
I believe that falls within a revision within a department, especially if it comes with money.
So let's say it's Public Works gonna go out and, plant a bunch of trees. Because the Climate Steering Committee is asking all jurisdictions to kick in money for that. That would be a revision within Public Works because we're supplementally authorizing $25,000 to go plant trees.
That's right.
And there's no, because we've had, attacks about this particular provision about, we can't make a decision to amend the budget.
Yes, but you certainly can. This gives you
That-
broad
that-
authority.
But that might be another conditions, if speaking about project, because some projects may need to be included in the capital facilities plan.
Okay, that's another.
Right.
So you have to look, the parallel requirements as well,
Okay,
because it's, in order to have a project, an expenditure need to include in capital facilities plan. But if it's a program, certainly.
I guess, my question is, within departments, if you wanted to read, if you were trying to read that narrowly, you would say, oh, well, sheriff can spend money we told him he could spend on X, he could spend on Y. But,
To add or subtract,
adding-
that's to revise the budget. And I believe that the courts have
They don't-
interpreted that you
the
have
within is
very
not
broad-
a very broad, narrow,
That's
limiting,
not
straight
limit
jacketing.
you, no.
Okay.
No, it doesn't, it's very broad authority to make changes to the budget and to do so as you see fit. And as Romero said, there are other considerations. Is it a legal use of the fund? Are you following your own policies? That's something that the state auditor looks at. Are we following our policies? Are there other considerations like the capital facilities plan? And just, there's a lot of little things we have to look at, but it's pretty broad. All right, so I have pulled up this specific RCW for a couple of reasons. One is to reinforce the notion that appropriations set a limit to spending. So whatever the board appropriates, and it says right here, as finally fixed and adopted in detail by the Board of County Commissioners, the list of expenditures shall constitute the appropriations, and every county official shall be limited in making of expenditures or the incurring of liabilities to the amount detailed in the appropriation. So it doesn't matter how much money is sitting in a fund, it's the amount that the board approves to be spent is appropriation, and that's all you get to spend in any given office and department. And the board sets appropriation by fund department level for operating expenses, and in the capital budget, you set your appropriation by project, by capital project. So that is the absolute limit, unless, and that's the provided section in this particular RCW, unless the board adopts a change. So that's where the supplemental, the transfers or revisions within departments, or supplemental appropriations from unanticipated receipts may be made by the board. So this is where your broad authority to make a change to the budget comes in. And then, once that change is enacted, that's the new legal limit. So an appropriation is the original budget plus any supplemental changes or amendments that the board should make. Now, this is the reason that you, that we're not following the calendar. I'll show you in a minute what the calendar is, because this RCW further goes on to say that to amend the budget, the board must publish notice of the time and date of the meeting where you're going to make a change, and that we have to publish once a week for 2 weeks before that amendment is made, the amount of the change. Now, in the past, the board has made changes right up until the time you take a vote on the amendment. But we're going to follow this RCW in a strict interpretation from here on out, where I'm going to be asking the board to make final decisions at a meeting like the one today, which is why your agenda said we're gonna make decisions. And then once we publish the amount in the newspaper, you won't be able to change that when, in the duration that it's published and up until you take a vote. And in my conversation yesterday with Elizabeth, she said, should the board decide to change something after we've published the notice, then what we need to do is retract that notice, cancel the meeting, have another decision-making session, and set the vote on a different date. So the process is a little different than what you've done in the past. What you decide in the meeting is what you will adopt when we are in a Tuesday afternoon board meeting. So any questions about that? No?
When you said, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
Yes.
Yes.
go ahead,
All
Commissioner.
right.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, and then I'll get you, Commissioner Menser.
Okay.
I guess my initial question is, what changed that we're doing this differently now? Did the law change, or are we catching up with maybe something we were missing?
So in the past, in the legal notice, we included a statement that said amount subject to change. We've done that, we've always done that. We've done that at least as long as I've been in the county, but I will ask Elizabeth to explain why we're changing at this time.
Good morning, Commissioner. I think Robin said it correctly in terms of a strict interpretation of the statute. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that what we've done in the past is wrong. I'm just saying, looking at the language of the statute, it's pretty specific. And I guess I'm going more from also from a best practices perspective in terms of what the statute says. And so it's my advice that the board take these actions. If you're more comfortable doing what you've done in the past, that's, a choice you can make. But this is just my best conservative advice.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser.
Commissioner Edwards covered it, thank you.
Okay, so I will go back to sharing my screen now, if I can figure out how to do that. Come up. And of course it goes back to the beginning. All right, so we had planned to have this be the schedule for the amendment. The notice would have been published earlier this week. However, the board has not made decisions. We did a run through of the request, but no decisions yet. So and you've canceled your May 31st meeting. So that was not an option to us anymore. So in a few slides, we'll go over what the revised schedule is. Here I wanted to talk about the process, and this is going back to setting a process that is clear and creates a fair opportunity for everyone to ask what they want. The amendment instructions said, here are the things that you can ask for in the budget amendment. One, unanticipated receipts, of course. We do fund balance adjustments, that's technical change. We do error corrections for any mistakes found in the original budget for this year, not for 5 years ago, which we've seen people ask for, but not doing that. Technical changes that have a net zero or very minor impact, changes due to federal or state legislation that was just enacted in the most recent session, emergent needs that could not have been anticipated at the time the budget was adopted, and we created this new opportunity of rollover of one-time items or projects that were not completed in 2021, but we specifically put in the instructions that there would be no rollover of underspent personnel funding. And then here's the things that are not included in a budget adjustment, again, straight from the instructions. As we discussed with the board in March, new policies or expanded programs are not part of an amendment. New FTEs that are not required as part of an unanticipated receipt, those are not part of a budget adjustment. And then requests for items that were considered but not funded in the original budget are not appropriate for a budget adjustment. So those are the things we're not gonna do. Here's our revised schedule. And I would also mention that, we set a due date for these. And in the past, we've been pretty lenient about letting people come in late. And that has created a lot of problems, especially in one amendment last year. So part of creating a fair and equitable process is to stick with the schedule. And so we started after, we let people go like a few days past March 31st, but we had people coming to us in mid to late April saying, hey, I've got something new. And we told them, no, we're sorry, it's too late. You missed the deadline. They really missed the deadline. And I'm sorry, but no, we've got to cut this off. And we've got to cut it off at some point so that we can prepare the numbers for the board. So we've been cutting people off. We did the initial presentation April 28th. Today I was going to ask you to make funding decisions, and I'll explain that statement in a moment. On May 26th, we plan to submit the legal notice to the clerk of the board, and then we will publish the public notice with the appropriate amounts on the 31st and June 7th, and do the adoption on June 14th. That well within the limits and in a strict interpretation of the RCW. However, we have another new complication, and this is because of a recent change in state legislation. House Bill 1329 included a clause that says that the Board of County Commissioners cannot make a decision unless we have accepted or given an opportunity to the public to provide comment, oral or written comment on any decision that the board is going to make. And it came to my attention this morning that the announcement for this meeting said that the amendment was informational, that this was an informational, not a decision-making meeting. So we're going to have to set another meeting where I ask the board to make decisions, and we will adjust the schedule accordingly. So I can't ask you to make decisions today.
Yeah, and I didn't have the chance to update the agenda to a final decision because the new interpretation of the decision-making process just came to the surface, at least to me, yesterday. So I didn't have the 24-hour notice to
Right.
change the agenda to a final decision. Although we, on the website, we have already outlined related to the new requirements that the board will accept written testimony until up to 2 hours before the final decision. So that's taken care of, but how we announced this meeting did not include a final decision.
Right. So, here we are. That's what happens when we take vacation, right? But, so we're gonna amend the schedule, but we're gonna get as far as we can today. What I'm going to ask you to do is we'll work through as many preliminary decisions as possible without coming to a final decision on any item until the next meeting. This does give us an opportunity to look at what the forecast will look like if you were to approve everything in the supplemental request. So this is where I deeply apologize to Commissioners Mejia and Edwards because I have documents here in the room that I do not have in a format that I can send you or to share on well, some of it I can share on the screen, but some of it I can't. So I'm gonna stop sharing though. I'm gonna stop sharing this. Well, just here's the last slide was we're gonna walk through these requests. So now I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna hand out the things that I have. The first thing that I'm handing out is pretty easy to describe. It is the first quarter estimate from all offices and departments of how much they are estimating they will underspend or revert, if you will, in general fund. And in this very first time around, the reversion estimate is $7.5 million, or almost 6% of your general fund appropriation. The majority of that comes from the clerk's office, $3.6 million, and the bulk of that is the LFOs that we're gonna back out of this budget amendment. Yeah, woohoo, right. So, huge underspending in the budget at this time. But you also have some other offices and departments that are projecting some pretty significant underspending. Almost $500,000 in human resources, I'm not sure why. A little over $500,000 in juvenile court. $268,000 in the prosecuting attorney's office, $332,000 in public defense. about 670,000 in the sheriff's law enforcement office, 427,000 in corrections, and 375,000 in CPET. So these are significant amounts. The budget office needs to take a little time and figure out what's going on and why we are so significantly underspent or projecting to be so significantly underspent after the first quarter. But 7 million on the table, which is part of what makes the forecast graph look the way it does. It's a big part. Reverting 7 million is significant.
Robin, can I ask?
Yes.
So I don't have the I mean, I know that's a big number. There was reversion. I'm assuming that that's a significant increase of what we saw a month ago.
Yeah, it's about 4 million more.
And you're going, well, because, the LFO, and you're going to, but are you going to, where appropriate, will you tell us where that might bear on decision-making about, supplemental appropriation?
Yeah.
Rather than just having to cross-reference every.
Yeah, here's the forecast, the new revised forecast. This creates a significant fund balance now going forward. And I am going to see if I can share this screen. Can I make this a little bigger? No, of course I can't find my. It's almost easier to zoom in from my desk because I've got more screens and more ability to show stuff.
Robin, I have a quick question if I could.
Yes, sir.
What you're showing us right now on the screen with the yellow horizontal and the green vertical, is that something that I should have in my packet or no?
No, sir, I apologize. This
okay.
is brand new as of last night.
Okay. And any of that material that Commissioner Mentzer, he gets the benefit of being there, which I wish I was, but I'm not. So we'll have a stack of that material we can review as well.
Yes, I have it all here for you.
Okay, good enough. So good.
All right.
Thank you. Maybe this afternoon.
Thank you for your patience. All right, so what this shows is a significant fund balance. We know we're starting this year significantly higher than we had anticipated. I think my last forecast was about 37 million and we're at 38.5. And
I'll tell you. The last draft of this, it was about 33.9.
yeah, that I thought it was higher than that, but so way more. We got more. We spent less than we thought we would last year, and if you look at 2021, offices and departments reverted $8.3 million last year. That is a lot of money being reverted. Then the putting the budget in, this forecast includes the increase from requests. It includes taking out the LFOs, and it includes a downward adjustment for sales tax, because as we talked about last month, the sales tax is not coming in as strong as we had hoped. It was still at 7% year over year change. So I reduced the sales tax forecast to adjust for that. And we still have a new ending fund balance anticipated of $39 million.
Just when I'm taking into account the, some of the contract, like I know we have preliminary decisions on contracts, like with the sheriffs. and
So
all that.
this does not include, thank you for asking that, it does not include the labor agreements entered into after March 31st.
Okay.
So the discussion that you had yesterday is not included in this forecast.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Menser. Robin, my question is there an updated graph that we can see on kind of how this numbers lands us on that? There we go.
I'm gonna try to make it bigger. Yep. Off the chart.
Of the chart, right?
Yeah, off the chart fund balance, ending fund balance. But even over time, remember this black line is $12 million. That's the absolute bottom for cash flow needs, but this blue line is your target for a 2-month fund balance, and you have far exceeded that in the current scenario if you approve everything in the budget amendment requests and
Well, that includes the budget.
the
amendment.
reversion.
I thought this was gonna be our baseline and you were gonna show the, no,
This includes everything except the labor agreements.
No labor agreements because
No
you have
labor
not taken an action on any of the labor agreements yet.
Right. And I can tell you, I did a little bit of modeling, we'll do some modeling, is that next week? On what salaries look like.
Yeah, we could, or we can take that as a final action on the budget amendment. Let's talk about that.
All right.
Robin, just one more follow-up question. When we ended up last year, right, with the budget process, I remember we were a little bit under the blue line. And so this projects that we're going to be above kind of what our target fund balance is now?
Yes, in every
Okay.
year. And again, it's a result of higher than anticipated reversions on the part of the offices and departments, and not having to spend the money on LFOs under the Blake decision. That is a huge part of why you are up like this. And what you see, if I had the other graph here to show you a comparison, is the curve just moved up. It's the same curve because the things that are impacting this are one-time things, but the curve just moved up above the line because you have such a significant addition to the ending fund balance in this year. The other thing that this chart does not factor in that the board has available is the additional lost revenue capacity from the ARPA funds. If you recall, the board took the option to take a flat $10 million in lost revenue. This forecast continues to assume $7 million, so that's an additional $3 million that the board can spend on one-time items that it's available to you.
I'd like to emphasize the one time.
One time, absolutely one time.
And also, I'd like to go back to the question of whether it includes the labor agreements. It doesn't include any of the labor agreements because the board has not taken an action. However, this model includes a 2.5% cost of living increase. So I just want to clarify that. So it does have the baseline 2.5, but nothing beyond that because that board has not taken an action going beyond that. So just want to clarify that it does include a 2.5 cost of living increase in this model.
Right. So,
This is I think after our last hearing, I asked for a copy, but this is new, so
this is brand
I don't
new.
remember getting it.
I
In
put them
paper.
in your inbox,
Okay, so you want
so I can
anyway.
certainly print them again.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. So you're in excellent condition, financial condition at this point in time. It's
Can I ask a question?
I can't quite believe where we're at, but yes, please
Well,
ask.
so, I do remember going through all of the different requests, and obviously, financial limitations are always an issue, but we don't have to worry about that really in this particular instance, given the magnitude of the request. There wasn't any request that I remember being, against my values or not a good, thing that county would like to do. So I guess my final question is just, is there anything that is part of the budget amendment that doesn't follow the rules in the sense that, you outlined how important it is to treat everyone fairly and have clearly defined rules, so,
There is one item that does not follow the rules.
okay, so that would be, from me, I'm only one commissioner, but that would be what I'm interested in, because everything else, it seems like we're squared away.
Really are. Including covering the request from the coroner for what we anticipate is a significant shortfall. You can cover that for him and all of that. I will say that this forecast assumes that everything in this amendment is one time.
Thank you for clarifying that, because this model includes that assumption.
Yes.
If you, I know that you don't see that but if you see on this, right here, was it 2022 budget amendment number 1 includes, if the board approves everything as requested.
Right.
So,
But
still,
it would only be one time. It's not anything in this amendment that I would recommend to be an ongoing addition to the base budget.
Are there ones that are in a gray area in that regard then?
The coroner
Okay.
being the largest,
Okay,
yeah. Everything else is pretty much one time in nature.
okay.
So we can walk through these, yes, Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, just maybe a follow-up to Commissioner Mentzer's question. If on the coroner's situation, we funded the medical examiner position that he has been in need of, won't that be more than a one-time request? Because every subsequent year, it will go up accordingly, right?
Right, so the request that the coroner has in this budget amendment is to fund the ongoing examinations because he has been unable to fill that position. The position itself is funded. But the amount that it was funded is not enough to offset the cost of the autopsies for a number of reasons. What I am suggesting is that you add one-time money to the coroner's budget to cover the cost of the medical exams this year, and then in the midterm adjustment, you will, you're essentially buying yourself time. In the midterm adjustment, that gives you time to consider what action needs to be taken for the coroner on an ongoing basis.
I don't know the reason that he's not been able to fill it, but I assume it's probably because the salary is not added. Is that
That
right?
is part of it, and HR is assisting with that analysis. They're going through a recruiter right now. And if it comes back that salary is the reason, then that is the action that you would take in the midterm for ongoing adjustment to his budget. But with this amendment, I'm suggesting that you buy yourself some time and buy the coroner some time to figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So walking quickly through the packet that you do have, the first item is capital reappropriations. This is just rolling over capital items so that they reflect well in munis, but we didn't want any surprises. So that is a given. The second item is grants All of these grants come with money that equals or exceeds the amount of the expenditures. At the bottom line, you see that the impact on the funds is actually an improvement. So that should be a blanket approval when I can ask you to make decisions. Technical transfers, the vast majority of this, you'll remember, is the credit card rebate, but these are mainly small amounts for the most part, moving around between the funds. At the bottom line, the big thing in the technical adjustments is the adjustment for the LFOs under Blake. So if you go to page 7, you'll see that the general fund is a great big negative in expenditures that far exceeds the amount of revenue that we're pulling out, because we didn't put in revenue for these items.
What page are you on?
I am on page 7 of technical and transfers.
Technical.
Okay, I don't see.
And there's a bottom line,
And this report.
total general fund,
Oh, okay.
yep, big negative. So when the time comes for you to make decisions, I will ask you to approve this packet in total. Maintenance, this is mainly fund balance adjustments, and in your packet, you have a list of the title is Actual Ending Unreserved Fund Balance. You will recall that in the First Amendment, we adjust the fund balance in every single fund. That's what this list is. You can see that, for example, the general fund was adjusted upwards by $5.8 million. And this is compared to what I was estimating the fund balance to be last August. It's tremendously more. But every single fund, we have $3 million in the budget stabilization fund. We were expecting $2 million, so it's adjusted up. Another example, if you look on page 2, you'll see Fund 1400, that's your housing fund. They had anticipated ending fund balance to be 15 million. In reality, it is only 7.3 million. So it's being adjusted down. And once we have these actual fund balances, then we do another report to ensure that no spending is in excess of what's in the fund. But right now, every fund is balanced, and so that is the bulk of the maintenance packet, is adjusting fund balance. There is one item on page 5, in Medic 1, I guess it starts at the end of, there's an item at page 4, the very last item, line 80, is an increase to the appropriation in central services for fuel costs. Fuel is costing so much more than we ever anticipated, so we need additional authority to pay for fuel. And then on page 5 is Medic 1 has unanticipated costs mostly related to a contract.
It's currently underway being negotiated.
Yep, but in total, zero impact on the general fund, so we'll ask you to approve this packet in total when the time comes. Operating carry forward and rollover, those are the next two packets. Really, this rollover thing is brand new for us, so the budget office needs to get better at it. These could be consolidated into a single packet. It is items that were not completed last year, that where the money was not spent. They're bringing it forward. So there are a number of items in the operating carry forward. In the first packet, there is no impact in general fund. All of these are other funds. And in the rollover packet, this is where there is one item that doesn't follow the rules, It is line number 3 for the sheriff's law enforcement. They ordered these items, they were not received, but they were going to pay for them with personnel savings. So they're asking to roll forward the personnel savings, and that is exactly what we said they could not do. So-
How much is that?
It's $56,000,
Oh, is this for
small amount of money.
So Robin, we'll talk about the schedule hopefully next week when the board makes final decisions. In this case, it will take an action on the individual items.
Right. So
We'll
That-
walk through
that-
individually.
everything else follows the rules, everything else in this packet. And then the last item are the policy decisions. All of them are in accordance with the rules. We'll go through them one by one if you'd like at the next meeting. And, but there's funding available for all of it. The total impact to the general fund is about $425,000, but you're saving so much by backing out the Blake costs that you come up in an excellent position. So that is the budget presentation, and I think Ramiro's got one item for you.
Yes, I have one item, and this item is going to be absolutely, totally opposed to what just Robin walked you through. In terms of, she highlighted the importance of appropriations and how much nobody can go beyond the appropriations the board set aside for any office and department, as well as the process she outlined is fair, equitable for everybody. But I feel compelled to bring this item to your attention, and this is related to the habitat conservation plan and the land acquisition that we need to go through to place ourselves in a good position with the when we get the incidental take permit, so we can start working with our citizens, with our residents, on issuing the credits on their permits. You may recall during the budget process, you created a fund under CPED where you transferred $500,000 from the conservation features to really start working through that process. It came to my attention, and in fact, I have an item on your agenda for next Tuesday under executive session, the opportunity to purchase land to the habitat conservation plan that goes beyond the $500,000 that you set aside in the appropriations for this fund. So it really it's hard me to ask for the board to consider increasing the appropriations for this fund in their CPED that goes beyond the $500,000 that you have set aside to transfer from the conservation futures into this fund.
How much are you talking about?
My suggestion was an additional $500,000.
Commissioner Menzer.
I thought we had millions of dollars set aside from previous stockpiling of conservation futures for HCP land acquisition.
Yes, sir. We're not talking about the ending fund balance of the conservation futures.
Talking
We're
about
talking about the
appropriation
appropriation authority.
It doesn't matter how much money is in a fund. If you don't have appropriation authority, you cannot
So we're
spend
just
it.
releasing money we've already saved.
So you would be giving additional appropriation authority. The part that it's not following the rules, if you will, we have a process.
Yep.
This is coming in extremely late in the process. For you to add this item, we've been saying no to people who've been coming in, saying, can I add something to the amendment? No, you're too late. And it is totally the prerogative of the board, but this is exactly where you draw criticism and give credence to the criticism that you treat your appointed departments different than the elected officials, and that your own items get preferential treatment.
And I,
Not following I'm just saying that if we're gonna create a system where everybody feels is fair and equitable, then these are the kind of actions that detract from that.
and the reason that I feel compelled to bring this item at this is not the 11th hour, perhaps the 12th hour in the process, is because there is an opportunity to purchase some land.
It's your prerogative to do so.
I have two questions. One is, so just to clarify, the only sticky issue is just the timing of the request.
Is
It's
the
not the
timing.
substance of what's being asked.
Correct.
That's just,
It's the timing.
so then my question is, why would we only authorize, like, we know land costs a lot of money and we've got millions of dollars, and we know we're on an aggressive program to get as much land as we can. Why wouldn't we have just authorized, like, why did we only authorize $500,000 for land purchase rather than letting them have access to it, that way they can use it when the opportunities arise? So this sounds like a mistake we made. This sounds like a technical technical mistake that we didn't think this through last fall. It's not asking to spend new money.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that mistake.
For a new purpose.
It was just, it was just at any given time, at that time, that's what probably was adequate. Perhaps we, including myself, didn't have the foresight to give the board to consider additional appropriation. And that's perhaps on me. And but again, I feel compelled to bring this item before you because this opportunity to purchase land just became available and just became part of the whole process. So, and I don't want to put you on a bind, and I understand the rules of engagement. And Rob and I had a good conversation yesterday about
Yes, we
this.
did.
And I'm not trying to bring this something that is a want. Is perhaps I like to consider this as a need. So I just leave it there. And I'm not expecting you to make a decision today
Right,
because
no
it's not-
decision to
no
make,
decisions
but
today.
here our debate. This is absolutely within the prerogative of the board. It fits within the limits of the law, where you may make revisions as you see fit. In an amendment, we haven't published yet. If we had already published in the paper, I would be telling you it would be an illegal action, or we would have to do something else. But I think that because we haven't published the amendment yet, it is the board's prerogative to add it. I'm just telling you what the downside is, and I'm being the bureaucrat here.
In the offices and departments are listening to this conversation.
Yes.
And I'm just full disclosure. But again, I will not be doing my job if I don't bring this matter before the board.
Because it is an amazing opportunity.
It is an opportunity, and this is really what we, from my humble point of view, is a must do to position the county to be ready when the incidental take permit for the HCP becomes available. It's just.
So no decision today, but.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes. As far as the fair and equitable to all parties concerned, I believe that if we were to dedicate some extra money for the habitat process, I think it is fair and equitable to all parties concerned because it's an economic development driver. And that has a positive benefit to all parties. So I'm not too worried about that fairness issue. I do think that Commissioner Menser makes a good point when why have we been so narrow in setting that if something was to come forward, and doesn't say we have to spend it if we put some money aside, but at least we have an option. And I guess that's what I took away from Commissioner Menser's comment.
Right.
Thank you, Robin. For me, kind of where I stand, I feel we've been waiting for this so long. I agree with Ramiro. It's too important for us not to do it, especially because, I feel like, we're almost there, and to just have this technical thing kind of trip us up right at the finish line, it would be just too much. And I know there's a lot of residents in Thurston County that are following the HCP and that are awaiting it. And it's just, just that little technical piece, especially for an oversight on our part, I don't know if I could just really excuse that. But I really do see what you're saying, Robin, in terms of, how other departments and offices feel about this. But for me, it's something we've been waiting too long. And I feel there's still a lot of work to do in terms of purchasing land. And as it becomes available, I want to make sure that we have whatever appropriations we need to fund it.
Okay, that's all the last item that I had for you. And we will ask to make, as part of the decision-making process, next Wednesday, and maybe walk you through your schedule, next Wednesday, that will be the 25th. I will have a budget meeting from 9 to 11. And we'll walk you through some scenarios that Robin has stated, and also we'll label as final decisions for the budget amendment, just to make sure that agenda includes that. There is a noxious weed control board briefing at 9 o'clock. We will reschedule that. So we will have a 2-hour budget conversation. They will include final decisions on the budget amendment. So I just want to leave it like that.
I need to be downtown at 11, so I may have to leave it like 7 or 8 minutes before the hour.
We should be, 2 hours should be
Yeah,
fine.
more than enough. I
But
mean,
just when you-
we just walked through all but a few items
Yeah.
in 5 minutes, so.
Okay. With that, thank you all very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.